Before the Coast Guard, there was the United States Life-Saving Service, and the year 2024 marks the centennial of this fascinating chapter in our coastal history. Let's head to the Outer Banks with Rebecca Ward to learn more about our life-saving legacy in this state.
There's 5,000 shipwrecks out there. Some of them were before there was a life-saving service. Some of them were after. The graveyard out there might be just the ship. Our job is not necessarily to save ships. It's our job to save the people.
Before the modern U.S. Coast Guard came the United States Life-Saving Service, or the USLSS.
This isn't just the life-saving service that became the Coast Guard. This is America's history.
The surfmen who served in the USLSS in North Carolina saved lives in one of the most dangerous maritime regions in the world, nicknamed the Graveyard of the Atlantic. With little more than wooden boats, ropes, and line-throwing guns, North Carolina surfmen risked their lives in severe weather conditions, often in the dead of night, to rescue strangers.
This is not local history. This is national history. We always tell people it's not just the history of the United States Life-Saving Service and what surfmen did. You know, all the dots connect. From the Civil War, the fight for freedom, black watermen.
The legacy of the USLSS in North Carolina can be explored underwater and on land. Let's start at Cape Hatteras National Seashore. The history of the USLSS in North Carolina begins in 1874, when our first 7 stations were built along the Outer Banks.
Congress had allocated $200,000 to build some stations in North Carolina. The superintendent of the life-saving service was a fellow named Sumner Kimball, and he had targeted the Outer Banks because of the Graveyard of the Atlantic out there. Chickamauga is the most complete life-saving station museum in the United States. We have an 1874 station, we have the 1911 station. Our mission is to preserve the stories of the men who served in the United States Life-Saving Service and the men who served in the early Coast Guard along the coast of North Carolina.
So what is the Graveyard of the Atlantic?
The Graveyard of the Atlantic is the resting place of over 5,000 shipwrecks over the course of history.
But why right here off the coast of North Carolina? How is it different than, say, anywhere else on the...
Couple of different reasons. One is the weather patterns. The weather patterns change frequently and quickly. The other is the clash of the Labrador Current with the Gulf Stream. They meet out there, which causes the water to swirl, and swirl for miles and miles. The other is shoaling.
Shoals are natural underwater ridges, or banks, formed by tides, currents, and waves. Unlike land, which is a fixed and visible feature, shoals are often hidden beneath the water's surface, and they shift over time. So Hatteras Lighthouse is built right off the coast of the Graveyard of the Atlantic on Cape Hatteras. It's over 200 years old, and it's the tallest lighthouse in the United States. While lighthouses can show where land is, they can't mark underwater hazards or rescue mariners in danger.
They had built these stations, but then they didn't man them. To save money, they said, we're only going to man them during hurricane season. So the Huron, within sight of a station, people drowned, but the station was not open yet. Thomas Nast, our very famous political cartoonist, drew a cartoon of Uncle Sam hanging his head in shame on the beach with bodies rolling up out of the surf saying, I guess we're going to have to spend some money. And then the life-saving service went 12 months a year.
The tragedy of the Huron led to the construction of even more life-saving stations along our coast, including the Pea Island Station.
Right now, you're on Roanoke Island in Manteo, North Carolina, at the Pea Island Cookhouse Museum. It was the building where people who served in the United States Coast Guard cooked. The Pea Island Station was primarily staffed by black keepers for 67 years. My father, Herbert M. Collins, would have been the last left in charge of the station. So he served there the duration of World War II. His grandfather served at the station, his uncle served at the station, his great uncle served at the station. You know, my ties to that station obviously run deep. This museum honors the history of Richard Etheridge and the Pea Island Lifesavers. Richard Etheridge was once enslaved. He was the nation's first black keeper in the United States Life-Saving Service. And the station that he commanded is the only all-black station in the history of the United States Life-Saving Service. He ended up fighting in the Civil War for freedom, returning to Roanoke Island, and eventually getting a job with the United States Life-Saving Service. So, you know, his story is also the story of black watermen, the enslaved who were raised by the water. Although they were enslaved, they would have been used to fish, to guide people through these difficult waterways. You know, they were the experts on the ocean. It's 1880. Etheridge is put in charge, and the whites who were at the station, you know, couldn't, wouldn't, didn't, whatever you want to call it, but that's, you know, that's the start of Etheridge kind of getting an all-black crew. Then shortly after that, the station is burned to the ground. There's no one, as I understand it, who was ever accused officially of starting the fire. In the end, that doesn't stop Etheridge and his crew. You know, this new station is built. You know, they're working with stations. They're doing their thing, participating in joint rescues with other stations. So I think over time, you have men who, in these dangerous conditions, you know, would have to respect what each other did. Above us here, actually, it's our most precious artifact, I think. You know, this is the actual signboard of the E.S. Newman. Keeper Richard Etheridge and the Pea Island Lifesavers are most known for this rescue that occurred October 11th, 1896, in the middle of the night during a hurricane.
Richard, Captain Etheridge, took two of his guys, tied them together, and said, you guys swim out to that ship and tell the people to jump off the boat, the ship, and you swim back in with them.
Swim out. Swim out. And, you know, the rescue starts at 9 p.m. And by 1 a.m., everybody's safely at the Pea Island Station. They never lived to know of any recognition, but thankfully, they were posthumously awarded the Gold Life-Saving Medal. And that occurred in March of 1996, almost 100 years later.
In 1915, the Life-Saving Service merged with the Revenue Cutter Service. That's Hamilton's group that's out there collecting tariffs, and they merged and became the Coast Guard.
What are we sitting in right now?
We are sitting in surf boat number 1046. It was the surf boat used in the Merlot Rescue.
What was the Merlot Rescue?
The Merlot Rescue was in 1918 in World War I. And there were submarines out there in World War I.
All right.
Watch your head.
All right.
It's a ladder, not a stairway.
Okay. Woo!
Leroy Midget was up in that tower. He was looking out, and suddenly he saw a plume of flame and smoke about as high as Hatteras Light, and said, "We got a case." I see the flare, I know we got a case. I notify the keeper, and we're off. So they took this surf boat and they launched it into the ocean. The fourth try, they made it out past the breakers, and they saw a lifeboat. The response from the lifeboat was, "Hi, I'm Captain Williams, captain of the Merlot, British oil tanker. I picked up 68 tons of aviation fuel in New Orleans, and the Merlot is hemorrhaging aviation fuel. We make 4 trips in. We saved 42 of 51 British seamen."
We're sitting on the boat that those
Yeah,
dudes sat.
this boat. Sat him right up there. The Life-Saving Service saved 177,000 people nationwide. Everybody knew who they were, and then they just got forgotten. Well, we remember them here at Chickamaucomico, so come on by.
To learn more about the history of the United States Life-Saving Service, you can visit the Pea Island Cookhouse Museum at 622 Sir Walter Raleigh Street in Manteo. The museum has limited hours, so give them a call at 252-573-8332 or go online to peaislandpreservationsociety.com. You can also visit Chickamaucomico Life Saving Station at 23645 North Carolina Highway 12 in Rodanthe. It's open from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Check them out online at chickamaucomico.org.